I used to think betrayal arrived loudly. A slammed door. A confession. Something obvious enough that you could point at it afterward and say, that was the moment everything changed. I was wrong. It started in the back room of a small repair shop, with the smell of motor oil on my hands and her standing beside the counter like she had nowhere else she needed to be. She was 46, confident without trying to prove it, with dark hair pulled loosely behind her neck and the kind of expression that made you wonder what she noticed but didn't say. She had been my best friend for years. The person I called when my life felt too complicated. The person who knew my husband almost as well as I did. That afternoon, she brought in an old watch that had stopped working. "You can fix it?" she asked. "I fix broken things." She smiled faintly. "That's a dangerous thing to say." I laughed, but she didn't. For a second, we just looked at each other. It wasn't romantic. Not then. It was simply strange. She looked away first and pushed the watch toward me. Her fingers brushed mine, accidentally, and she immediately pulled her hand back. "Sorry. You don't have to apologize." "I know." But she said it too quietly. Later, when I finished repairing the watch, she stayed by the door longer than necessary. She thanked me, then hesitated. "Don't tell him I came here." I frowned. "Your husband?" She shook her head. "My friend." I watched her walk away through the glass window. That night, my husband came home later than usual. He kissed my forehead, put his keys down, and asked how my day had been. I almost told him about her. Instead, I said, "Fine." And for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd looked at me before she left. Like she knew something I didn't. 3 days later, she came back to the shop. This time, she wasn't carrying the watch. She stood in the doorway holding a cardboard box against her chest, looking more tired than I remembered. "Can you help me with something?" I wiped my hands on a rag. "Depends." She gave me a small laugh. "You always say that." "Because people usually bring me impossible things." She set the box on the counter. Inside were old photographs, letters, little things she had collected over the years. She wanted me to repair a wooden frame that had cracked along one corner. While I worked, she sat nearby. Usually, she talked too much. About work. About neighbors. About stupid things my husband had said that made us both laugh. That afternoon, she barely spoke. I noticed her hands first. She kept rubbing her thumb against the edge of her wedding ring. Over and over. "You okay?" I asked. "Of course." She answered too quickly. I looked back at the frame. Didn't sound like it. She smiled, but there wasn't much behind it. "You've become very observant." Occupational hazard. "No." She lowered her eyes. "You've always noticed things." That stopped me. For a few seconds, the shop seemed unusually quiet. The refrigerator hummed in the corner. A car passed outside. She kept staring at the photographs. Then one slipped from the box. I picked it up. It showed her years younger, standing beside my husband at some party I'd never seen. She reached for it quickly. "Don't!" Her voice was so soft that I froze. She took the photograph from my hand and pressed it against the rest. "I'm sorry." "For what?" She looked at me. Her eyes were tired. "I don't know anymore." Neither of us spoke. When she finally stood to leave, she paused beside me. Her shoulder nearly touched mine. "Some things," she whispered, "are better left where they started." Then she walked out. I watched the door close behind her. And for the first time, I wondered what exactly she was trying to keep from me. She called me just after closing. "Are you still at the shop?" I looked at the clock. 9:47. "Yeah. I need a favor." 20 minutes later, she arrived carrying a folder of documents. Rain had started outside, tapping against the windows while she stood there with damp hair and a coat darkened at the shoulders. "My car won't start." I grabbed my keys. "You could have called roadside assistance." "I know." She didn't move. I looked at her. "What aren't you telling me?" Her mouth opened, then closed. "Nothing." That answer had become familiar. I checked her car, found a loose connection, and fixed it while she waited under the shop awning. When I came back inside, she was sitting on the workbench, staring at her phone. A message had appeared. She turned the screen over immediately. "Everything okay?" She nodded. Then, almost too quietly, she said, "Your husband knows." I stopped. "Knows what?" She looked toward the rain. "About us." My stomach tightened. "There is no us." "I know." She said it so quickly that neither of us spoke afterward. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and went pale. "I have to go." "Who is it?" She stepped closer instead of answering. For once, she didn't look confident. "I should have told you sooner." "Told me what?" She reached toward my hand. Her fingers stopped just above mine. Then the phone rang again. She pulled away. "I can't." She walked into the rain before I could stop her. I stood there watching her disappear through the windshield of her car. My hand was still resting where hers had almost touched it. And somehow, that unfinished movement felt more dangerous than a kiss. The next morning, she was waiting outside the shop. No umbrella. No explanation. Just standing there with both hands wrapped around a paper coffee cup that had probably gone cold. "You didn't call," I said. "I know. You said your husband knew about us." She looked down. "I shouldn't have said that." "Then tell me what you meant." She took a breath. "I meant he knows you've been helping me." That wasn't what she'd said last night. We both knew it. She stepped inside when the rain began again. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. I worked on a customer's engine. She sat in the corner. The silence became so uncomfortable that I finally put down my wrench. "What are we doing?" Her eyes lifted. "I don't know." That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have. She stared at the floor. I came here because I needed someone who wouldn't ask me to pretend everything was fine. You could have gone anywhere. I know. Then why here? Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup until the lid bent. Because you look at me like I'm still a person. I couldn't answer. She laughed once, quietly, but there was nothing funny in it. That's pathetic, isn't it? No. You don't even know what you're saying no to. She looked at me then. Really looked. There was no confidence left in her face. Only exhaustion. I've spent so long being somebody's wife, somebody's friend, somebody's reliable person. She stopped. I don't remember what I'm supposed to be when nobody needs anything from me. I swallowed. You don't have to figure that out with me. I know. She stood. For 1 second, she came close enough that I could feel the warmth of her beside me. Neither of us moved. Then she whispered, "That's what scares me." I watched her walk away. And when the door closed, I finally understood that whatever had been happening between us had already changed something neither of us knew how to put back. I found the photograph by accident. It was tucked inside the wooden frame she'd brought me weeks earlier, hidden behind the backing. I almost threw it away. Then I saw my husband's face. Beside him stood her. But they weren't alone. There was another woman in the picture, standing slightly behind them, smiling at the camera. I turned the photograph over. A date had been written in faded ink. 6 years ago. That was the year my husband had told me he'd been working late every night. I called her. She didn't answer. Instead, I received a voicemail. Her voice sounded tired. If you found the photograph, then I suppose I can't keep avoiding this. I sat down. She continued. Your husband wasn't having an affair with me. I stopped breathing for a second. He was helping me after my sister died. I was a mess. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't work. He kept showing up because he promised her he'd look after me. The message ended. Then another arrived. This one was shorter. He also asked me never to tell you. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. When she finally came to the shop that evening, neither of us knew where to begin. You should have told me, I said. I know. You let me think. I know. She looked down at her hands. I was ashamed. Of what? Her eyes lifted. Of how much I depended on him. Something inside me loosened, then tightened again. I understood the lie. But understanding didn't make it painless. She stepped closer. I should have trusted you. I looked at her. Why didn't you? Her lips trembled. Because I was afraid you'd see me the way I saw myself. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she reached into her coat and handed me an old letter. It was addressed to her. My husband's handwriting was on the envelope. I looked at her. She whispered, I never opened it. And somehow, that tiny unopened letter felt like the first honest thing either of us had shared. I didn't open the letter. Not that night. I gave it back to her and told her I needed time. She nodded like she'd expected that. For the next week, we kept our distance. No late calls. No unexpected visits. No excuses to stand too close. Then, on a Thursday evening, she came into the shop carrying 2 coffees. "I didn't know if you'd want one." "I do." She smiled faintly. We sat on the old chairs near the window. Outside, people hurried home. Inside, neither of us seemed in a hurry to leave. "I told him everything," she said. I looked at her. "And?" He was angry. "At you?" "At himself. Mostly." I nodded. There wasn't much else to say. The truth had finally become simple. There hadn't been an affair. There hadn't been some secret romance between her and my husband. There had only been 2 people keeping a promise that had become too heavy to carry. And somewhere inside all that confusion, she'd started coming to me because I listened. I had started waiting for her without admitting it. She looked at me. "I don't want to hide anymore." "Neither do I." Her fingers rested between us on the chair. I moved my hand closer. Not touching. Just close enough for her to notice. She didn't pull away. After a moment, her little finger touched mine. Neither of us reacted. Then her hand slowly turned, palm upward. I placed my hand in hers. That was all. No promise. No dramatic confession. Just warmth. She leaned her forehead lightly against my shoulder. I stayed still. For once, neither of us needed to explain what was happening. When she finally whispered, "This feels dangerous," I looked down at our hands. "Maybe." She smiled against my shoulder. We stayed there until the shop lights switched off automatically. And when we finally stood to leave, she didn't let go of my hand. I still have the photograph. Not because I want to remember the lie. Because I want to remember how wrong I was about what betrayal was supposed to look like. For a long time, I thought love had to arrive cleanly. No confusion. No secrets. No history standing between 2 people. Life taught me otherwise. She and I didn't suddenly become a perfect couple. We argued. Sometimes she needed space when I wanted answers. Sometimes I went quiet when she needed reassurance. There were evenings when the past sat between us at the dinner table without either of us mentioning it. But we stopped pretending. That changed everything. She stopped carrying every problem alone. I stopped trying to fix everything for her. And slowly, almost embarrassingly, we learned how to simply be together. Sometimes she'll catch me looking at her and ask, "What?" I'll shake my head. "Nothing." She never believes me. She smiles anyway. I think that's what love became for us, not some dramatic moment that erased everything that came before. It was choosing to stay after the uncomfortable conversations. Choosing honesty when lying would have been easier. Choosing each other when neither of us felt particularly brave. One evening, months later, we sat on the same old chairs in the repair shop after closing. Her hand found mine without looking. I squeezed it. She leaned against my shoulder. Nothing needed fixing. That was the part one never expected. I used to think broken things needed someone to repair them. Now I understand that sometimes they just need someone willing to sit beside them while they heal. And somehow, after everything we almost lost, she became the person I came home to. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?